Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again. Please do hit that like and subscribe and share if you feel moved to, and drop a comment below and let me know your own thoughts. Just time for another little roundup of all things It Ends With Us drama. Yeah, the last time I spoke, we just kind of had that appearance of Blake and Ryan at the Times 100 Gala. And we were all a little bit bemused by the speech, because she was there supposedly as somebody who donated to Black Lives Matter and was some kind of titan in honour of that, if you like, even though it was 6 years ago, which in itself was confusing. So yeah, so we were there under she was there, what we believed to be under the belief of representing that particular cause, but she stood up and made this really uncomfortable speech. I can't actually watch it anymore. It's just too awkward. Because it's just that awkward little bit that she said about, the last 2 years of my life, but I couldn't possibly speak about it. But let's talk about my mum's story that's nothing to do with it, really. That kind of I can use to kind of get some reflected victimhood. And the way she set up the story and everything, it was with a false narrative right from the start. That is the problem, and that's what's glaringly obvious to most human beings at this point, is that the inauthenticity, because she sets up the story with this worst crime that could ever befall a woman, and everybody's instinct straight away goes to SH, the R word, whatever you want, enforced bondage or something like that. Your mind instantly goes to that, women specific crimes, and proceeds to relate this very vague story and says if we name it we claim it or something like that. But it's like, well, yeah, but you didn't really talk about the meat of it. It was just very vague, glossed over terms. There was no meat to that story. And it seems like, from what I've heard, that actually it might have been a female on female thing that happened to Blake Lively's mother in the workplace. I don't know the full details of it. I'm not sure that it's come out just yet. So that gives it an entirely different perspective altogether. And I'm not saying kind of whatever attack it was that it was the mother's fault or whatever, but what was the other side of it? What was going on? What was the scenario? This is not what she's implying with the setup of this speech. And just that very awkward statement about, her mother calls her up and tells her things like life's just a bowl of cherries, and she put on that deep South accent and all of that. And is that her mother's genuine accent? I don't know, but it's like, if you were going to kind of make this little speech about your mother, I think you could do it in much more flattering terms. So it did come off like it was a vehicle for her own agenda rather than anything that was truly done in gratitude or anything like that, or true appreciation of her mother. And yeah, this idea of, because apparently it's the thing now in Hollywood or within certain peoples, that they're very careful, like to, get out of some of the stories that are out there about them that are gaining traction and going viral and the rest of it, that they look at the SEO and they look at ways that they can divert attention. So by saying this quote of life is like a bowl of cherries or whatever it was, there's kind of a couple of issues why that could be interesting. I was watching Daily Dose of Dana and she was talking about it, because one of the things is that Blake is known now by this idea of cherry-picked texts. In the lawsuit it mentions this a lot, that they got those texts from Jen Abel's phone and just selected what they wanted and adjusted things and removed emojis and cherry-picked it. So the term Blake Lively and cherry-picked are going hand in hand if you're looking at SEO. And the other one was this idea of, how Blake took so much control over the movie and of the score of It Ends With Us. Well, one of the songs that she insisted on having in there was Lana Del Rey's Cherry, apparently. So that's another, you know, if you Google Blake Lively and Cherry, you might have been coming up with that. Because it was one of those times where she was being interviewed and it was, oh, I'm not supposed to tell anybody, but I'll tell just you know, because she is incapable of not running her mouth, basically, Blake Lively. So there may be some kind of, you know, that could be another use of extortion over Baldoni and his team, that she so much wanted that particular song. Maybe she was withholding certain things at the time in order to get her way over that as well. So there's these couple of incidences, and that whole cherry world like a bowl of cherries, which seemed very odd in the context of that, what she was doing, that actually might be to divert attention to that speech with Blake Lively and Cherry in the same sentence structure, away from these things that are more toxic and more related to the lawsuit that they don't want attention on. And possibly because there's actually more to those things than we even know about, more legal aspects, more underhanded dealings and all of that. So yeah, they had a big weekend, didn't they, all told, between flying to Wrexham and dominating there and coming back and back to New York, and there was another Simple Favour premiere and all of this. And what's kind of interesting when you look at it, I think, is how many of these little conversations they're having off to one side now, and the little micro expressions you're seeing and things like that. And I suspect that many of these little hush-hush, whisper conversations are Ryan pretty much telling her reminding her of the agenda, reminding her of what she should say, could say, is allowed to say. Because I get the feeling now, and I could be entirely wrong, that there's a very careful game being played. I think Ryan knows he's got a loose cannon in terms of his wife, that he can't really control her very well, that she can't be trusted not to say the wrong thing and to give herself away, that, you know, she'll just walk straight into a lie that's easily, you know, disproved kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of this, and she seems to be, oh, just give me another kiss for the camera and all of this. So I feel like Ryan's playing this really careful game. I'm not really sure whether he loves his wife anymore, whether he ever loved his wife, or what the hell it's been all this time. And though I think it was more telling that there was a hug between Ryan and Hugh Jackman on that Another Simple Favour premiere. And I think you get more from Hugh's face than you do anybody else. I think Hugh looks quite worried, actually, either for his friend or his bromance or the status quo or whatever it is. Maybe he's just genuinely concerned for his friend, but I think that was more telling than anything, because no matter what, whether they're liars or manipulators or whatever you want to call them, there's no two ways about it that this thing will be hard. But they're making it hard on themselves just by believing their own agenda and not kind of trying to bring some kind of resolution to it all and just allow everybody to move on. And I think what you notice with Blake is how very touchy-feely she is. I mean, we've talked about this before, but she kind of uses people like touchstones, or like, look, I can control you, because I feel like that with Ryan. It's this thing of, look, I can touch you. Maybe she can't touch him at home, but it's still like when she's out with him, she's got her hands all over. It seems to be her way of, she kind of uses people as self-soothing. It's like if I can touch you, I can ground off you, you know, or I can tap into your energy and take some of it to bolster myself. I feel like it's a bit like that. I actually do feel, you know, I am absolutely 100% Team Justin, but there's a big part of me that can't help but feel sorry for her, because it's not easy to live a life that's like that, that's kind of really shallow and insecure, and you can't keep track of your own lies in your own head, and you can't remember who you told what to, because you're just white lying all of the time. It's not a very easy way to live your life. Being inauthentic is not easy to sustain. That's why things like authenticity and vulnerability are so important, because if you're honest, even about the worst things that you've ever done in your life or the things you're most ashamed of, it's always a way, it straight away attracts people of a good energy to you, because straight away they can see who you truly are at heart, because they can look beyond what you've done to the person that's beneath, and they can connect with you on different levels. But it's impossible to connect with Blake or Ryan because they're very, very superficial. I mean, I think it's great what they've done for Wrexham. And this is the thing, you can never say anybody's truly all bad or truly all good either. Because whatever the agenda is over there with Wrexham, there's no doubt that it has benefited the town. You know, and that was really quite a rundown town. The only problem is, when Wrexham came out, that show, I wasn't really interested because I'm not a football person and I'm not a big Ryan Reynolds person. But it was one of these things that one day when I was short of something to watch, I thought, oh, just watch that, even if it's just on in the background and be watchable enough. And I kind of got into it, and I watched like up to before the last series. I'd kind of caught up to it. I can't watch it now because I just don't want to see that. I don't want to see Ryan and all of that. Because you're just seeing it all in a different light now, aren't you? And yeah, other than that, it just looks like it'll be interesting to see now whether Marvel is forced to give up information about the creation of Nice Pool. I think they've moved to quash that subpoena asking for all the information, emails, notes, etc. related to the creation of Nice Pool. And the Wayfarer Parties team has filed back that yes, it is important, because obviously they're going after that because it will prove malice. It will bolster their claims of this was a coordinated campaign against Justin to ruin him both personally and professionally, to do the best to wipe him off this planet, in effect. So it is very important, and I think it will become more and more clear how much of an afterthought Nice Pool was and how calculated. There was somebody, I don't know what relationship he was to the film, but he worked on the film, and he said that there was like a standing joke between Ryan and Blake that if they went to the toilet to do a number two, they were going to do a Baldoni. I think you can just see that as well. Not see it literally, but that's the kind of level of meanness, isn't it? That you could so dehumanize somebody as to reduce them to that. And that takes a certain level of mentality. That takes two souls who have moved so far away from the truth of what they are that they need to reduce other people to basically defecation, you know, in order to feel okay about themselves and maybe to feel okay about what they've actually done here. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. But other than that, obviously there'll be more and more that comes out now, whether we'll get any little Twitters about the depositions. The big news kind of either late yesterday or early today in UK was that Travis Kelce has unfollowed Ryan Reynolds. So I think that tells you exactly kind of what you need to know. So it looks like Team Taylor and Team Travis are definitely drawing a line under this, and that is a very, very big move, as we know in Hollywood. It's not just casual like we would do it. They know that people that they follow and unfollow is tracked. So to unfollow somebody is a massive statement, isn't it? So we know that Taylor is not buying this relationship anymore. So Yu is still definitely on board because he's still definitely showing up with them everywhere. Not so much Taylor, which again is very, very interesting and telling, I think, because when Taylor has been through a situation where she was essayed, you know, a guy put his hand under her skirt, it's very interesting that she's chosen to dispense with Blake, or to appear to have dispensed with Blake, who is, you know, making a claim of a similar thing. You would think that if Taylor genuinely thought this was true, that if Taylor genuinely thought, because I do believe Taylor's a genuine person. I think if she believed somebody was genuinely essayed, having gone through it herself and been through a legal case to do with it, I think she would be showing up in support in some way, and she hasn't. She's been deadly quiet, and part of that at the beginning, maybe she was waiting to see what information came out. Maybe she was questioning her own mind and her own feelings and wondering, have I been wrong about this person all this time? And of course, the more that came out to do with the dragon thing and all of that, it's, you know, I'm sure she's kind of been absolutely sideswiped, I think, by a lot of this, and about all of this to do with how much she's supposedly been inputting on this movie, when I think if she has been, it's a fraction of what Blake is saying. So I do believe that Taylor Swift does not believe Blake for an instant, but she can't really come out and say the opposite either. But what she can do is back up her boyfriend in unfollowing. You know, Taylor doesn't follow anybody, apparently. So we can't tell it from Taylor's point of view. We can only tell it from Travis's. And Travis knows them because obviously he was party to several outings. And I think Blake's 37th birthday party was at Taylor's mansion. So he's been well involved with Ryan and Blake. And so it's all very interesting. And we're getting to kind of the meat of it now, I guess, with the depositions coming out and all of that. But it seems like Blake and Ryan are trying so hard to hang on to this is us, this power couple, this influential permatanned people, you know. The people over the weekend, wasn't there, delighting in how she had a fake tanner rubbed off under a dress, you know, showing up that, haha, you're not so perfect, you know, you're just like the rest of us, don't get airs and graces kind of thing. And Ryan, he'd managed to tan himself so dark that when he went and stood in a corner, he looked like he was doing blackface. He was that dark. They just need to stop trying so hard, basically. It's being nice people is, you know, being nice people. they should have just taken more notes from Justin Baldoni and just applied them to themselves rather than creating a mocking character that they could use against him. But yeah, they're still showing up as if this is it. If we all we need to do to ride this out is just to show up looking glamorous, appearing to still have power, appearing to still have powerful friends. And you know, meanwhile you've got the little guys like Jed Wallace over in Texas that's, you know, fighting for his professional life as well. And it's a weird one, that it's quite complicated. I've been watching some of that with the Tilted Lawyer. It seems like that when they kind of first dragged Jed Wallace into it, with this original California Rights Department claim, whatever it was, he was named in that, and he was kind of named as if he'd SH'd her as well. And it's like, well, he was the social media guy, so how's he SH'd her? It was like this very flimsy thing was put together, and it was almost like it was handed to the New York Times before it was actually a signed off and sealed court thing. Because when they had to do that, when they had to kind of make it all legal, suddenly Jed Wallace wasn't there anymore, but the damage to him had already been done. So that's kind of what he's going after. And there's this idea that Blake has been trying courts all across the land and systems across the land to kind of try and fit the agenda of what she's trying to achieve. So if it's not, it's like, you know, the Me Too law, is it 47.1, something like that? So if that wasn't applicable there, she'd go somewhere else. And she was cherry picking where she was kind of taking issue with people, you know, and it had little to do with where the movie was filmed or the certain things that happened. It was like, no, this is where I can fit something to my agenda. So all of that has to be unpicked and solved. But it's really not looking good, I don't think, for Blake and Ryan from a legal perspective. So we will just have to see, and I'll just keep you updated. I kind of just watch everybody that's covering it, like the nicer people. I like the nice ones, like Without a Crystal Ball, and I quite like Popcorn Planet, although he does sometimes go off on his people in the chat, and I don't like that so much. I think if you've got an audience, even if they're getting a bit out of hand, you kind of do it in a loving way, you know what I mean? And people like Daily Dose of Dana and Dave Neal, although he's a bit too airy-fairy sometimes for me, Dave Neal. But yeah, just please do continue to look at this with an open mind, as if it's human beings involved on all sides. So even if you don't agree with what Ryan and Blake are doing, just remember that it's somewhere inside them, very deeply buried, there are these little innocent kids that once were, that probably got very damaged and very banged around in one way or another. And that's why they're showing up as the adults they are today, that are full of victimhood and judgment and, you know, be like me, otherwise you don't count, and all of that, and needing to be permanently fake tanned in order to show up on a red carpet. I mean, that in itself is an exhausting thing, having to endure so much body makeup on a regular basis. That sounds like a fair dose of punishment to me. I don't know about you. It's not something I'd want to do, but yeah, I will catch up with you again soon, and thanks for watching.